Now to other stories. The Supreme Court has set aside the judgment of the Court of Appeal in Abuja recognizing Julius Abure as the national chairman of the Labour Party. In a unanimous judgment, a 5-member panel held that the Court of Appeal lacked the jurisdiction to have pronounced Abure national chairman, having earlier found that the substance of the case was about the party's leadership. It held that the issue of leadership borders on the internal affairs of a party over which courts lacked jurisdiction. Now, the panel also noted that Abure's tenure had since expired. The court allowed the appeal filed by Senator Esther Nenadi Usman and one other and held that it was meritorious. It therefore proceeded to dismiss the cross-appeal filed by the Abure faction of the Labour Party for being unmeritorious.
Say today is nothing unusual, because the real issue here is that when they went to Julius Abure and his group went to the Federal High Court, they went and made a claim that they were entitled to be the leaders of the party. Then that judgment was set aside by the Court of Appeal, but in so doing, the Court of Appeal went ahead and declared Abure the national chairman. So when we came to the Supreme Court looked at the cases and said that no, that since the two lower courts have found that the substantive dispute was the issue of leadership of a political party, that they had no jurisdiction to pronounce Abure as national chairman of the party, and that their judgments were not out of jurisdiction, and they set aside the judgment. And also the Supreme Court went ahead to make the point that political parties, on the need for political parties to be well guided by their constitution and guidelines, especially on the issue of tenure of officers, and that Julius Abure's tenure, he has outlived his tenure. So that is the purpose of the judgment.
I'm so happy about this landmark judgment. It's something that is quite deserving. It's something that is quite encouraging for any person to resort to court anytime such situation like this arises. I'm happy today that Labour Party has come to stay. This is a people's party. This is a party everybody believes in. The message I have for the party members is that all along they have been so patient, because situations have risen where they should have rioted or reacted violently, but they have been so patient. So I'm telling them that they should now still remain patient, and let's build the party together. All hands must be on deck moving forward.
Well, in response to that ruling by the Supreme Court, the Labour Party says that the court did not sack Abure. At a press conference in Abuja, legal advisor Kehinde Edun and other party members said the court rightly upheld the law that only the party has the responsibility to choose its leaders.
What they have done simply today is to say that every member of a political party must respect the decision of the party. Every member must respect the party supremacy. That decisions about leadership are decisions that are purely the internal affairs of a political party. And once a party has taken a decision, everybody should respect that decision.
This is a very simple matter. The court upheld that matters of leadership of any political party rest on the members of the party. And when we are talking about the party, who is the party? The party is the constitution of the party. And in the constitution of the party, you have the ward executive, you have the local government executive, you have the state executive, you have the national working committee, you have the national executive committee, and you have the national convention. This is what the party is all about. The people that are running about, they should tell you which one did they belong to in all of this.
There was nowhere they said that Julius Abure ceases to be the national chairman of Labour Party. And there is nowhere they say that the illegal National Caretaker Committee should take over the leadership of Labour Party.
Well, joining us now in the studio is the National Legal Advisor of the Labour Party, Kehinde Edun. You saw him moments ago in that report. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight.
Thank you.
Well, you seem to be doubling down your side of the party, of the Labour Party, you know, insisting that in spite of the fact that the Supreme Court actually, in its judgment, ruled that Abure's tenure had since expired, you're still insisting that Abure remains the national chairman of the Labour Party.
Now, those reports are actually misleading. The Supreme Court today never said Abure's tenure has a part. The citizen of the judgment will be ready soon. Maybe by next week we'll get it. There is nowhere in that judgment that said that. Let me say the things that the judgment said. Now, there are 2 Court of Appeal judgments. There is the judgment of 13th November 2024, and then there is the judgment of January 17, 2025. Now, in the judgment of November 13, 2024, the court affirmed Abure as the national chairman of Labour Party. That judgment has not been appealed against. It is a judgment in a pre-election matter, and the time to appeal against it has elapsed, and that judgment remains binding and subsisting. Now, but on January 17th, the same Court of Appeal now gave another judgment in which it said it had no jurisdiction. That because it was talking about the leadership of the party. And also, the court said that even the appeal filed by Nenadi was of no moment, was odious, and was liable to be dismissed. So because of that, the court already admitted that it had no jurisdiction. But during the same judgment, it now referred to its earlier judgment of 13th November 2024 to affirm Abure as the national chairman. It is that finding that the Supreme Court said today that court shouldn't have said that. The court did not say the November 13th judgment did not affirm Abure. No, the Supreme Court did not say that. But the Supreme Court said that since in this second judgment, the court already said it had no jurisdiction, then it shouldn't have now made any pronouncement. That finding that the court made shouldn't have been made. But the judgment of November 13th is still there, valid and subsisting, not set aside, which affirm Abure, and the Supreme Court did not set aside that judgment.
When does Abure's tenure expire as the national chairman of the party, since it's been there since 2021?
Yes. When he came in 2021, he was as an acting national chairman to complete the tenure of A.A. Salam. Now, A.A. Salam died in 2020, I think December 29, 2020. So there was a vacancy, and now that vacancy needed to be filled. So the neck of the party was called on March 29, 2021 to elect a substantive chairman. Now, what they now said, well, we want to elect an acting national chairman to complete that tenure, which was supposed to expire in 2023. Abure was elected in that neck meeting of March 29, 2021. He was elected as the acting national chairman to complete the tenure of Salam. Now, that tenure was supposed to expire in 2023, but it was just immediately after the general election, and the neck of the party met again on April 18, 2023 in Asaba and extended that tenure for 1 year. Now, that extension was to last until June 2024. But before the expiration of that, a national convention was called. And that national convention held on March 27, 2024, which now elected Abure as the substantive, no longer acting as the national chairman. So Abure's own tenure started on March 27, 2024.
Okay. All right. And it was in the same 2024 June that INEC insisted that his tenure had expired. But this is just to inform our viewers that we also reached out to the caretaker committee, the National Caretaker Committee of the Labour Party. In particular, the National Secretary was supposed to be here to give their own side of the story, as they are interpreting it differently at this time.
Senator Darlington.
Indeed. Yes. So we're still open to hear the other side of the story. Coming back to you, sir. You said you wanted to enlighten us on what the court said.
Yes.
Because you're denying it.
Yes.
You're denying the reports in town. Did the court at any time endorse Mr. Abure as your party chairman today in that judgment?
The court said that the issue of leadership is not the business of the court.
So
that is not for the court to pronounce that this is chairman. That it is the party itself, through its internal mechanism, that decides on who the national chairman is. And said that the Court of Appeal, the only thing that they said that finding of the Court of Appeal in the judgment of January 17,
so please,
the judgment of November 13 already.
You've made that point, sir, and I hate to interrupt because we don't have time on our side. I really need a yes or no answer because there's a lot of confusion.
Yes.
Did the court endorse Abure as your party chairman today? Yes or no?
The court said there's no business
Exactly. So the court did not mention who the leadership of your party is today.
Never mentioned.
You are relying on one of the two courts of appeal judgments.
Yes, the November 13 judgment.
Which
why are you choosing now?
Has no jurisdiction.
No, it was January 17 judgment that the Supreme Court said the court did not have jurisdiction
by a court
to entertain it.
Whether it's appeal court
or the federal high court or high court,
whatever court.
The Supreme Court
has
has said
the Supreme Court is saying is
no
the
jurisdiction.
Have absolutely no business in the business of the political parties.
Now, what happened? It was the admission. That November 13 judgment was an admission by the parties as to who the chairman is. It was not a declaration by the court. It was not. It was in the January 17 that the court now referred to that admission in order to make that pronouncement. So is this the Supreme Court that said that pronouncement is set aside? That January 17 Court of Appeal judgment was actually struck out.
Okay.
Not set aside, struck out. And the judgment of the federal court was also struck out. The reason, the rationale for that was that the Supreme Court said that any matter that has to do with party leadership is the business of the party, and the court should not make pronouncement on it. But in the November 13 judgment, it was an admission by the parties. Okay, it was not a pronouncement by the court.
Okay, we understand that, and you've stated that clearly. Okay. Now, is this a case of sit-tight power grip? And that's the question a lot of people are asking, because the whole controversy when it comes to Labour Party has been with the Abure-led executive. INEC does not recognize him. Stakeholders such as the only governor that you have produced as a party don't recognize him. The presidential candidate in 2023 does not recognize him. The labor unions don't recognize him. Wouldn't you say it's time perhaps to step down? Is this about one man? Is this about individuals or the party unity?
It is not correct that INEC doesn't recognize him.
At what point did INEC start recognizing him?
Continued to recognize him. And we gave notice of primaries that is currently going on in Anambra, and INEC received those notices. INEC, but there are the last three consultative meetings that INEC has always invited him, and he has only been present. So we have been participating fully in all INEC programs. So INEC today recognizes him, and they are dealing with him.
So now it is obvious that the courts cannot resolve the internal issues or affairs of any political party.
You are correct.
Is this an indictment on the internal, mechanisms within the party to resolve these issues?
Now,
whether it applies to the Labour Party or any other party for that matter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that the Labour Party can resolve this internally in a political way, because the courts have failed?
They wash their hands off.
Yes, wash their hands off.
What the court has said must happen is that the parties must resolve their crisis and determine who the leader is. But I want to tell you that the party already made that decision clearly, and that it is the decision of the party, and the party already held
what exactly is the party? I mean, who is the party now? I mean, what's the Labour Party
now?
Who makes
the highest organ
who makes
of the
up
party?
Now, let me talk about the party that you talk about.
Now, party is about the organs. Now, the National Convention is the highest organ of the party,
right?
Followed by the National Executive Committee, then downwards. What I'm saying is that the National Convention already heard and took a decision. What the court said today is that it is not for the court to pronounce it. If the party has made a decision and have decided on it, so be it.
Yeah, you've gone beyond that.
Now, what the court said about tenure, the court today never said Abure's tenure has expired. The court just made a general advice to all political parties that all political parties have constitution, and that constitution must be respected, and that if a term of office is specified, if that term of office runs out, the occupant of that office is supposed to step aside unless re-elected. But in this case, there's nothing like that. That term of office of which Abure was actually national chairman, we started on March 29th.
So you're saying that Abure has 3 more years to go as the national chairman of the party, if you say that his tenure started reading
on March 27, 2024.
Okay, you have the lawyer here, and you were in court today. The court also dismissed the cross appeal filed by your faction as unmeritorious. What was that cross appeal?
Now, the cross appeal was also about the leadership of the party. Once
the court decided that it was unmeritorious.
Once an appeal has been struck out, then the cross appeal becomes of no moment. That's what happened. The appeal of the Nadi in the court of appeal was struck out. Now, this appeal in this case was allowed, but the court now said something that because it's the issue of leadership and the cross appeal is talking about leadership, then that cross appeal is of no moment. I was dismissed.
So, is there a way forward for the Labour Party? What would that way forward be?
There will always be a way forward. And the thing is that...
Are you working on one at all now? Where are the internal party mechanisms?
It is not for any
ensure
individual
that the Labour Party does not, come unglued.
Now, the thing is that you don't clap with one hand. It takes two to tango. It is not for one person to pursue reconciliation. We have always been pursuing it. For every member of the party that is willing and that is desirous, yes, there will always be a way out. What we find now is that there has to be that way out, but there has to be willing people that are willing to cooperate with the party, and then for us to chart a way forward.
Okay, I guess
that has always been our position. We have always been extending only branches to everybody, and that has always been what we have been doing.
Peter Obi,
the NLC.
The truth is that we talk all the time.
The Abure State Governor,
if you try to know that
we
and everybody talk with everybody.
Just talking is not enough to resolve issues.
There's no other way we can do it other than to try to resolve it.
Okay.
But there has to be people have to be willing and have to be desirous. But if people are not willing and not desirous and say that, well, maybe the party should be in comatose, but we are not
based
going to
on
allow
your
that.
reaching out very quickly, based on your reaching out to this other side, what has been their response?
Well,
do they seem unwilling to come to the table?
All of them have been expressing willingness to cooperate with the party. They have been expressing it, but we have not achieved it.
All right.
But I believe that we'll get there.
We wish you the very best, and of course your party as well, the Labour Party. Kehinde Edun is the National Legal Advisor of the Labour Party. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.